Welcome to Soulful Conversations with Nadjejda. Thank you for joining me today. Today I have an amazing guest. I'm so inspired by her. Rosen. Rachel is a leadership coach, facilitator, speaker, radical social justice activist, and the founder of Spark for Humanity, the fun card game where everyone belongs. Spark for Humanity helps communities unleash their potential to work together and connect in meaningful ways. Rachel also works part-time for an educational nonprofit where she is a racial equity coach. She partners with leaders to create powerful, equitable learning conditions so all students, regardless of race, home language, or zip code, have access to a quality education. Rachel is on a mission to bring more liberation to the world, one conversation at a time. Thank you for joining me today, Rachel.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here, Nadjejda. It's really an honor, and I'm excited to be here to chat with you.
Yes, I'm excited as well, as you know. So tell me about your thoughts on and journey around cross-cultural communication.
Yeah. So my journey, do you want me to start with the journey or do you want me to start with my thoughts?
Wherever way you feel comfortable.
Okay. I think at this point, a year ago, if you would have told me I'd be talking openly about some of my most vulnerable stories, I wouldn't have believed you. But the truth is, I feel like I'm an open book. So I'm happy to start with my where I think it all began, which was in my childhood. Really, I grew up in a small town in Texas, and there wasn't a lot of certainly in my family, I was conditioned to avoid conflict, to not talk about race, to not talk about difference, to put on a happy face. Not that my parents raised me necessarily to do that, but it was just kind of the air that we breathed in my town and in my school. And so I didn't have practice at talking about cross-cultural communication. It was more like the elephant in the room. If anybody openly talked about race or cultural difference, it was not necessarily an accepted way of engaging. And so I noticed it at a very young age that my friends, something happened in middle school for me when I had a very diverse friend group growing up, and I've been always drawn to all walks of life. And I noticed something alarming that happened in middle school, which was my friends who identified as being either students of color or students with a different home language. There was this undiscussed, like under the radar thing that happened where we basically separated based on race. And in hindsight, it breaks my heart. And I think the reason it breaks my heart is for many, many reasons. But one of the biggest reasons is because at the time, I didn't even have the capacity to question what was happening. It was just part of what happened in middle school and high school. People formed cliques and they segregated based on race. And I feel sad that I didn't have the muscle to question or show curiosity about what was really happening and engage in conversation. So it was painful to see, and I remember talking to one of my friends at lunch one time and saying, why do you sit over there? I think that I was always trying to figure out what was happening and why there was such division, but I didn't have the language or the tools to really go deeper until I learned I had the privilege of being able to travel. I traveled quite a bit in college. I lived in Spain for a year. I lived in Costa Rica, and I traveled in Eastern Europe, and I had the opportunity to expand my horizon and to feel what it was like to be in a different point of view and a different perspective. And so it's a long way of saying I've always been trying to figure out what gets in the way of people having authentic, human to human, deep, meaningful conversations. And it just so happens that now, fast forward 10 years after graduating undergrad, I became a teacher and I taught for many years in East Oakland. And now I'm in an interracial same-sex relationship. So everything that I do is all about cross-cultural communication and all about bridging divides. So that was a mouthful of like the why. You asked for my story, so I shared it.
Yeah. So would you say then you're traveling, all of that has really just really broadened your view?
Yeah.
And how would you say, so when you came back home, how did you start having these conversations? Like, how would you say, like, how did it all begin for you?
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people say you get culture shock when you move to another country.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like for the first time I arrived home when I moved to Spain. Something
Wow.
about being in a different place, being in one place specifically because my parents were divorced and I had to travel from house to house all throughout my upbringing. And so that was my first time to be grounded in one place for a significant chunk of time. And the experience of being an outsider to me was refreshing. It was vulnerable. It was nerve-wracking at times, but I felt like a renewed sense of purpose. And so my goals of learning a language and applying directly what I was learning to my classes and my communication with my home family that I was staying with, it was the most powerful experience that I've had cognitively and emotionally in terms of my own growth. And so that, then when I came back to Texas after being a year in Spain, it was the most disillusioning experience. That's when I got culture shock because I came back to a community, a small town in Texas, very, very small town. And I just felt isolated. I felt alone. People didn't have the same experiences that I did. And there was a lot of closed-mindedness in some of the communities that I was a part of. And it was very disturbing. So that's what pushed me to go to education because I wanted to offer an experience that I never had.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So tell me, and I know you're in Oakland now, which is Oakland, California, and that's very different from where you were in Texas, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, did you pick Oakland based on the way you had broadened your view, the way that maybe you felt like you didn't belong when you went back to that small town in Texas? I'm curious, was that part of your transition, to Oakland?
Yeah, that's a good question. I just remember coming back and being in my room that I was staying in at the time as a senior in college, 22 years old, barely 21, 22. And I remember all my friends were applying to graduate school or applying to jobs. And I thought, I was taking this educational psychology class because I was a double major. I majored in psychology and Spanish. And so I was studying educational psychology and I was fascinated with social dynamics. So I had the experience of being an outsider and I saw people welcome me and make me feel included in my experience in Spain. And I was really disturbed that in our own country, I wasn't seeing teachers and communities include others who were from other countries because I had such a positive experience in Spain. And so I was on a mission, especially after taking this educational psychology class and observing different schools in the same town in Dallas, Texas. I remember coming back and saying, I need to be in a classroom. I need to be a designer of an experience where all kids will feel welcome and included, regardless of where they're from, regardless of what their home language is. And I wanted to teach Spanish because I wanted to push myself even further. So I wanted to do dual immersion elementary because I thought if at a young age, if I could have had an opportunity as an elementary school young person, 6 years old, have had an opportunity to be bilingual,
Yeah.
I would have become a whole different human being. I would have had more empathy with another person's experience and all the division. I think language represents both the best and the worst sides of our country and our culture because it's the vehicle for communicating values in many ways. And it's an excuse, I think, for some people who don't speak multiple languages to feel I don't know exactly, like to feel less than or like a sense of lack of power if you don't speak someone's language, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all of that to say, I did apply. I knew I had to get the hell out of Texas. That was the long answer to your question was like, the short answer is I had to get out. I did not like what I was experiencing. And I actually went to a dark place. Like I remember feeling so sad, just like heartbroken. There was such an absence of culture in that community. And so I said, I'm going to apply to the two opposite coasts. I'm going to apply to New York City and I'm going to apply to the Bay Area and see if I get into these two teacher programs. And I didn't get into the New York one, and I got into the Oakland one. So that's where
That's where,
yeah.
So I'm curious, did you get any pushback? Like, because I'm just curious, like, in terms of when you first started or when you came back, like, was there any type of pushback? And it could even be from your own community or even from the Hispanic or the minorities. So I'm curious, were there any pushback? And if there were, how did you deal with that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I laugh because I was so naive. I thought, oh, I'm going to come from Texas, this small town, wide-eyed. I want to help people. I want to help the children. I enrolled in this course. And when I showed up, they, it's like, I have a positive energy, as you see, we've known each other now for almost a year, but this is kind of how I really show up for people. But if you take this and you take away the backbone, like I was just all smiles and all happy. I had no schema for what it would look like to be, in such disconnection with the community, right? I thought that I was going to show up and offer the classroom that I never had. And I had these big intentions and hopes. But the truth was, I did not get placed in the elementary placement that I had hoped. I wanted to be a elementary school teacher because I was very comfortable working with little kids.
Yeah.
But that wasn't a need. They didn't have a need for that. So they said, I'll never forget, they pulled me into the office and said, hey, you have a change in placement. And I was like, okay, great. 4th grade, 5th grade, maybe 6th grade. And they were like, no, high school. You're going to be working with, and I was 22. I was a baby. And they said, you're going to be a high school Spanish teacher at the most challenging high school in East Oakland called Castlemont. And I said, okay, I'm very strong-willed and I have a strong work ethic. So I was like, okay, I can handle that. Sure, I can do this. The main thing I was worried about was being so young. I was like, why would they trust me? I'm like a couple years older than these kids, really. I'm still a kid myself. And they said, it's okay, just, fake it till you make it. Just use the curriculum. And I was like, fake it till you make it. Like, how do I do this?
Yeah.
And so, and I felt confident in my Spanish because I had just come back from Spain, but I was speaking a different dialect. I was speaking Catalan, Spanish, Castilian Spanish. And oh my Lord have mercy, that first year, the number of fights that happened in my classroom, the number of just straight up disrespectful encounters with kids that I experienced, of kids, the majority of my students were, especially in Oakland, were from Mexico. That's where their families originated. A lot of them were from Michoacan, a small community and state in Mexico. And so I didn't know anything about that. And I was speaking with my Spanish accent, and the moment they heard me talk, they started laughing. I remember a kid threw something at me and I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, it sounds cheesy, but it was really like a scene.
I can imagine. Yeah. From a scene from the movie, right?
Yeah. So it humbled me immediately. I really, really had to figure out what is my purpose here? How do I actually build community when I almost feel like I'm just the same age as these kids? Who am I to be their teacher? What do I have to offer? It bumped up against every one of my core values and all of what I believe in when I was told to fake it and not be authentic. It was really challenging, and it was formative for me because it's like when you break down and you get to your most vulnerable place and you have to build community. I remember one day I broke down in tears, and the kids, I was expecting them to laugh at me and walk out because they, had every right to. I was not positioned to be their teacher. I was not the teacher that they deserved. And, but instead of walking away or laughing at me, they approached me and they were drawn to my vulnerability. They were drawn to my openness and my realness in that moment. And so then from there, we built a community out of a struggle, really. So it was very, very formative for me.
Wow, I can imagine. And I'm curious, how has that experience really shaped you and where you are right now in what you're doing with Spark for Humanity, with your own coaching, and even with your work with the nonprofit you work for part-time?
Yeah. in every way, shape, and form, that experience impacted me. I was at that school for 4 years, and the reason that I would have stayed for longer, but there was an experience that was really, really awful that I went through the very last year. But I'll tell you that in a second. But the reason I stayed was after that moment that I cried, they were like, a kid told me after the experience, they said, you're not going to make it. You're not going to stick around. We see people like you all the time. You white girls come in and out. You don't look like us. You're not going to make it. And I was like, what do you mean? And they said, this is our experience. This is our life. We don't get quality teachers. You are just another one who's broken down. You're another teacher who's not giving us an education. And I, to this day, it still breaks my heart. I still keep in touch with the students. But it is from that moment forward, I was like, I'm not leaving you. I will be here next year, and I'll be here the following year, and I'll be here till the cows come home. I'm not going to leave you. I'm not going to be just another number. And I committed to them. And I learned so much from them. And I had to be open to adjusting my curriculum finally, and not sticking to the script and not faking it. I had to be real and honest. And so in every way, it connected with me with my purpose, I think. And then in my 3rd year there, I had one of the hardest experiences, a kid that I was really, really close with, who was like a nephew to me. He had been there all 3 years with me, and he was going to graduate the very next year. He was in a tragic accident and shot and killed. And he, everything about what happened to Javier represents why I do this work. Like, I can't not talk about how that propelled me to fight harder and to be stronger, because everything that happened in his life represents the absence of a system that was designed for him. And all the leadership challenges that we had at our school, all the moments that I could have seen a different future for him that he didn't have an opportunity to have, is because of more than just one teacher. It's because of a system that wasn't designed for him, and his life trajectory didn't end up in the way they should have. And so from the moment when he passed, I committed myself to doing more and figuring out how I could be a stronger, better, bolder agent for change. And so that's when I studied leadership development, and I went on to get a master's after that.
Wow, that's powerful. I mean, that's also sad in his story, but it's how from that propelled you to really step up and really do what you're doing now, so totally get that. Thanks for sharing that with us. Yeah. So I'm curious, in terms of, tell us about tell us about Spark for Humanity. I mean, I talked about it a little bit, during your introduction, but I'm sure my audience would love to know. I've played it once with you and your group, but tell them about it. I think it's a great game.
Yeah, and it does connect to the story that I was just sharing, and I apologize for dropping us down to that sad place.
No, it's it's all part of the journey. And I think sometimes we're kind of feeling that we shouldn't, I don't like using that term, we shouldn't talk about these things, but actually it's important to talk about them, because actually that's how people get moved, touched, and inspired. Because I don't think people are just moved by us if we show up as the passionate, happy, whatever, always, So.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I often tell my leaders that it's usually what breaks your heart open, that is from that place you can lead with power, and that it's getting to that broken. I didn't let my heart stay broken. I made it open up into a new version of myself, and a vulnerable version of myself. It was a hard time for me. But what I noticed, and the connection that I'll share to Spark, is that when you're desperate, when you're at your most confused states, or when you're in a big transition, you call upon all their resources to connect with people if you have the ability to, and I remember as a Spanish teacher, struggling to talk with my kids about what had just happened. They were like, why do you keep wearing black Miss Rosen? Or why do you seem so sad? Because I was very, very heartbroken. And I realized we didn't actually have the tools or the skills to talk about meaningful things in that moment. And so as a Spanish teacher, I use cards all the time and like art projects to get people to talk about what mattered to them. And so we would do more art projects during intense times and intense transitions. Yeah. And as a teacher, when you're learning a new language, using cards and interactive kind of concrete things helps people break the ice. It helps people kind of connect with another person. So that this journey using cards and stuff started from that early time. And then you fast forward to being a school leader. So then I was a school leader down the street at the middle school, just right down the street from Castlemont, for 4 years after getting my master's. And in that experience, I used interactive activities as well with my adult teachers to build our school community, because I noticed that adults also need scaffolds and ways to connect with each other beyond just like turn to and talk about what your deepest values are. You know, people don't, unless people have an invitation, they don't necessarily go beyond the icebreaker, and it can be a little uncomfortable. So I always was, again, this goes back to my upbringing. I've always been fascinated with like how, what does it take for people to really build bridges across difference? In my classroom, in my school community, I was always watching the people who didn't connect or observing what caused people to connect. And so I took notes, and I was lucky and so fortunate that I had a leadership coach for 4 years during that time where I was developing my leadership chops. And so he supported me to build my own capacity at asking the right question, offering the right prompts, using analogies and metaphors. And that's really, I mean, over time, you fast forward now to 2016, I developed this game out of, again, a brokenhearted place. I was at a time where the world was in a state of crisis. The social political landscape was shifting significantly in 2016 in ways that social media was being utilized in different ways. I mean, all of the rise of Black Lives Matter, as we've been in conversations about extensively around folks being more active on social media around social justice issues, I was just struck by the fact that people were really quick to post something, but not have face-to-face conversations about it. And it bothered me because I would be in a conversation with somebody that I knew they had just posted something. And then we would be at a loss for words of how do we actually engage in dialogue around what just happened. And the Orlando tragedy had just happened. It was early June. And there was a series of events where Alton Sterling, the tragedy of Alton Sterling, Philando Castile, there was this 1 week, I believe it was the first.
I was like, what's going on?
Everything. And that's when I said, enough is enough. People in our own family, in our own community are at a loss for words. So we need tools, we need strategies, we need ways to engage around this. And here I was coaching schools across the country, and I was noticing even at schools, there was a disconnect. People were kind of like checking in and checking out when it came to talking about what really was going on in the world. And so that's why I created the game, because I had a couple experiences at social gatherings where there were only a couple options. Like there was Cards Against Humanity or Apples to Apples, but no one was really talking about the heart of what was happening. And actually, there was a negative experience that Leah and I had with the Cards Against Humanity game, because it wasn't culturally sensitive, and there was some kind of tension in the room because of the cards that weren't mindful of difference and diversity, right? Mm-hmm. So all that to say, it was, again, another moment where I said, enough is enough. I'm going to do this, and I'm just going to hunker down and create this game. I have an idea. I can't sleep at night. I can't stop. I'm just like so motivated to create this thing. And now it's been 10 months, and I've hosted over 16 gatherings and now printed 2 versions of the game and sold almost 300 decks of cards. It's pretty phenomenal. Wow. Yeah, it's like work goes. Yeah. Yes.
Definitely. And let me tell you, this all happened in a very short period of time, because when I met her last summer, it was not happening yet. I remember it's like the pieces were coming together. So let me tell you, this happened like really fast. So happy, excited for you. So I
Yeah.
know you and I have talked about that a little bit, but I would love for us to talk about it. I know probably we don't have a lot of time, but since you were talking about diversity and we're talking about, it's one of the things that, as conversations are starting,
Mm-hmm.
and there is this whole movement where people are really waking up and people
Mm-hmm.
really want to be engaged and
Mm-hmm.
people are taking action. I mean, we've seen marches, we've seen people asking for a day of strike and stay at home, or just different things happening. People are, I mean, as you know, as we all know, the Obamacare, which is the Affordable Health Care Act, was not, they were not able to repeal it because people really showed up at town hall meetings. So really people are engaging. But with
Yeah.
that comes that some communities are feeling like, well, why are you standing up now? Or some communities are feeling that people, yeah, you can stay home because you're privileged and you can stay home where, for example, Black women, the minorities feel like, well, I can't stay home. So, so it's like there's this whole, and you and I have talked, it's like there's this whole where now there's like all this friction because
Yeah.
even in us trying to get together and really talk about the issues and stand up, for something, there's also this whole dynamic that is happening. And I know you had this blog where you talked about fearless listening, or when we're having conversations, like I told you, with friends or family members who don't agree with us, and we're like trying to come from a place of love,
Mm-hmm.
and we're being told, what do you mean? Why would I love somebody who voted for Trump or whatever? You know how it goes. So just
Right, right.
curious if you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Specifically, talking about the need for a different kind of communication or.
Definitely. And also, if you don't mind touching on, like what you were saying, how, okay, where the diversity, people are feeling like, okay, but when you say do this, I'm not being represented, or I'm not able to do that, so
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I know that was a lot I kind of threw there, right?
No, it's fine. I mean, it is a lot. That's the truth of the matter, is that there is just so much right now that it feels overwhelming. The number of, for me, the number of ways that people who otherwise could and should be united are dividing. I
That,
think
that
it's there's so many examples. So I feel, yeah, I hear you. And
and it's sad. It also makes me sad at times and makes me frustrated.
yeah. I feel you. And I did write a couple blogs about this right around the time of the Women's March, because it broke my heart open. For me, there are a couple things that are unique about my experience, but also allow me to have a vantage point, right, around my privilege. I am very clear that I am white and that I have a tremendous amount of privilege and a lot of advantages in the world. And that positions me different than my colleagues of color. That positions me different than my partner who's African American. That positions me different than my students, my former students. I'm very clear about how I'm situated relative to access and opportunity. Like, I am situated based on how I was born and who I am and how I was, just the skin I'm in, how that has afforded me many opportunities in my life. And I am clear that it is all the more reason my responsibility to do this work, because of where I'm positioned in the world and because of my experience facilitating and coaching in this realm. And so on a personal front, I think it just hit really close to home in January, because Leah, her friend group, we had this experience where I think a lot of folks in their communities, whether it's personal, family, social, we have our Instagram, we have our Facebook, you get your email,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, cool. More of, it's like we have these compartmentalized experiences nowadays. And because of social media, it's like I subscribe to all the things that customize my experience and my identity. My Facebook news feed represents my friends and my community. And Leah's Facebook community represents her friends and her community. And even though we have so many crossovers, most of our friends are connected and we have a lot of similar experience, like backgrounds and educational experiences, the truth is, because of our families and where we were raised, 3/4 of our communities are different, right? We have 1/4 of very similar experiences, but I can't divorce myself from my whole life in Texas. My family's still in Texas. Some of my closest friends are in Texas, right? So I see and hear a different narrative than she does. And so that week, everything hit home because I happened to be in Texas, and she had to be in Oakland, and I had to do a speaking engagement in Texas at the time. So I was in Texas. She was here, and I was marching with my sisters and my mom at the march on Austin, and she was marching here in Oakland. And we talked before and after because we had just seen the movie Hidden Figures. And so the week before the march, we actually had we did a video called Let's Just Talk. And we talked about how we were really concerned because of the discourse around that movie was so divided already. It was like we were hearing a lot of women not having each other's backs about the movie itself. And then we were seeing this rise of blog, kind of the difference in blogs that were going out in my community versus her community, that were basically illustrating the divide that you just described, right? Like, how dare you white people go out there? It's such a privilege to put on your pussy hat and this, that, and the other. Like, I was hearing that from her news feed, but then on my feed, it was like, go women, feminists are coming back, you know? And I just thought, you know, and this is, again, I'm generalizing and paraphrasing all this stuff, but the truth was I saw the division, and I saw how people can further compartmentalize themselves because of the frustration, because of the finger pointing and blaming. And I'll speak for myself. Up until very recently, that type of division and that type of blaming and judging would have frozen me. It would have actually stifled me and pushed me back into my shell, and I would have felt helpless. I would have felt, what is mine to do? Like, I speak up and I try to do what's right, but then you yell at me. Like, where is the wiggle room, right? Especially for this millennial generation, this rising community that's trying to develop their identity around this and their point of view. I think it's so critical that we align ourselves around a common goal and a common collective reason for marching. And that doesn't mean to divorce ourselves from our lived experiences, our unique perspectives. But I think the judgment and the inability to listen, that's why I call it fearless listening, because it actually takes some fearlessness and bravery to really listen to the other side when you're not really sure if you agree with them. But if you're clear on the common goal, then you have to show some curiosity. And I call it courageous curiosity, because it actually, in these moments of such division, it takes both fearless listening and coupled with curiosity to really understand that perhaps, maybe, we're all living from our own experience, and we're doing the best we can, and we're trying to find language and practice. We're not practiced at talking about this stuff, so everybody's fumbling around. And if we could just give each other a little bit of empathy, and actually try to imagine what it's like to be in someone else's shoes before jumping to conclusions and making assumptions, we'd have a place to start, you know? And I just feel so strongly about it, because my experience, like the number of times people make assumptions about my sexuality, my identity, is like, it happens all the time, you know? But if I let that shut me down and get upset every time, I would be certainly not making progress toward making the world a better place, or at least my world a better place. I would become cynical and disillusioned and angry. And that's not a person I want to be, you know?
Yeah, no, definitely. Because exactly. And that's what I got from you, is that it's really about choosing to listen and kind of like step away from the fear. Because I think that's what happens, is that people are, you know, we're many of us are living in fear, and what we're doing is, we're not listening to each other. We're not trying to put ourselves in somebody else's shoes, which is what empathy is about. Because really, like you said, you know, when you think about it, sometimes, you know, I know for me, sometimes I find myself arguing with people, or they're arguing with, like, and then it's like, really, at the end, we really want the same thing, you know? So definitely. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah,
I'm curious, what do you stand for in life, Rachel?
I mean, yeah, that's a little bit of a departure from where I was before. But I mean, I think that you're probably getting the essence of what I stand for, which is,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
I want to live in a world where everyone belongs and everyone can feel a sense of liberation and justice. It's
Mm-hmm.
really that simple. I think that everybody deserves to have a seat at the table, that everybody has something unique to offer. And I reject anybody who tells me that I'm too naive or too optimistic, because I've seen with my very own eyes the power of one conversation having a ripple effect on an entire community. I see it every day in my job, and that gives me reason to always have hope.
Yes, and you know what? Stay there, because I often think that people have said the same thing to me, that I'm naive and I'm this or whatever. You know what? There's this thing, I don't know. There's a quote that says it's only the crazy people think they have the courage to change the world. So I often say that it's those of us that they'll call us crazy, naive, whatever it is, but we just have to keep showing up and keep doing the work that we're being called to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I am naive. I mean, I'm not naive.
No, I don't think we are. I'm just saying we're being told.
Right. Yeah. People think that. And and the difference between being naive and being realistically optimistic, I'm very clear that this is going to take hundreds of years, what I'm talking about. But that's not going to stop me from fighting for peace and justice, and so I will do what I can in the way that I can with my authentic texture of my experience, and find my way to the table to impact the numbers of communities that I possibly can.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. And and it makes me, I just thought about how when I first told somebody and I was talking about spirituality and politics, I remember a friend of mine, he was like, you don't know what you're talking about. It's never going to happen. And even though I know it's not going to happen tomorrow, but I am noticing that when some people are talking, the conversation is shifting for many people that was not there before. So, so I truly believe that, it's not going to happen tomorrow. Maybe I won't even live to see what I would love to see, but I know it's going to happen because more of us are like waking up, more of us are really taking that on, because we've really gotten that. Coming from that place of fear is not going to get us there. So
it always comes back to the next generation. They're the ones that give me hope. They're the ones that I see the most possibility and potential. And so that at the end of the day, I'm a coach, I'm a facilitator, and I mainly work with adults, but it's always in service of the next generation. It's always in service of being better mothers, better fathers, better teachers, better leaders, so that when kids look up and they see you not make an assumption or not use hurtful, hateful language, that will impact them and that will change their life trajectory. When they feel like their whole identity is accepted and included, that changes everything. And so it's all they give me hope. They're the ones that are way up ahead of the curve already. And this, I think everything that I do is all about holding space and facilitating space and offering the right question at the right time so that people can actually think differently and show up differently for each other.
Yes. What are your thoughts on empowerment, and would say like specifically empowering women, although I know you work with everyone?
Yeah.
I'm just curious what your thoughts about that, since we do talk a lot about, this show was all about empowering women. In terms of my podcast, I'd love to hear your thoughts on empowering women.
Absolutely. I mean, you are such a light of love in so many ways. And I love that your focus is all about empowering women, because we need more Nadjejdas in the world, and there is not enough. They're sadly, the truth is, my experience up until very recently was that women, I guess to just put it simply, it's a fight and it's a struggle to get a seat at the table as a woman leader. Mm-hmm. And so when you get to the table, you have already internalized this competitive nature that you're not going to have other women's backs. And that is the most harmful, hurtful, detrimental thing for our humanity, is for women to not be lifting each other up. And so I feel so strongly that it's important that we lift each other up and that we empower each other and that we save a seat at the table and that we shine on each other and love each other now more than ever, because if anybody can change the world, it's going to be a woman. I know that for sure. The power, the strength, the resiliency, the courage, the bravery that women before us who have allowed us, or for me to even have the opportunities that I've had as a woman in this lifetime, is everything. And there's not one story that involves kind of, for me, the most like brave, courageous empowerment that doesn't involve a woman. You know, it's just, it's critical that we actually shine a light in the way that you're doing. So I love that that's your focus.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. No, because it's so true, that, you know, and I have to say, you know, sometimes I've even like thought about, you know, how sometimes in business, and I've even thought, okay, maybe this is not for me at times, I've thought, because I see there's so much competition at times. And I have to say, I don't, for me, actually, whenever I hear competition, I don't like it. Like, it just makes me, I don't have a bone to compete with anyone in my body. Like, it just, like, it kind of, I remember years ago when I first got into coaching, and I had a friend of mine, she was a coach too, and I'm sure she didn't mean it in any way, but she told me, oh, let's see who's gonna get a first client this week, you and I. And I was like, I didn't want to play that game. Like, I just, that's just not my thing, you know? So if I have to feel that I, you know, I guess some people do it just for the sake of it, like just as a game. I don't even like that. I mean, obviously I could play a game. It's not like, but I'm just not, competition is just not my thing at all. So, you know, so this is my last question to you. And then I want you to tell people about what you do and your offers and how they can find you, even though I think this kind of like piggybacks along, but I'm just curious to you, what would you say the world needs the most right now? And if we had it, it would make a whole difference, especially in the current moment we're living in. And why?
Only one? I could only have one?
You know? No, you could say more than one.
Okay.
Because I know for me, I have more than one too.
Yeah.
And most people out there usually have more than one, you know?
Yeah. Well, definitely the first three words that popped into my mind were empathy, compassion, and understanding. And I think they all go together. That allows for peace and justice. I believe that when we can see ourselves and listen and see that there is commonality in the human experience. There are struggles and there are triumphs, there are victories and there are losses. Like, we all have them. We all have the same color blood. And the truth is, in the absence of empathy and compassion and understanding, we can't have peace and authentic justice, I believe. I think that in order to get to peace and justice, we have to be able to know what we're fighting for and why, and really see that we are much more connected than we are different, and that we need each other to survive. We really do. And so, I think that would be the nice medley of a good combination. And, you know, to really, really have fairness and equality and justice for all, to get on a leadership kick, you know, my passion and my expertise is in leadership development. And so we also need knowledge and we need skills. We need to have the tools in how to navigate big systems and structures that are not designed for equity and justice. And so we also need knowledge. We need real facts, and we need to understand what it takes to lead during these times. And that means that we have to think differently and engage differently in order to show that empathy and to have structures that foster a different type of engagement, you know?
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. No, that is so important. So Rachel, let people know. So tell us about, if you want to tell us a little bit more about your work, you know, Spark for Humanity, and let people know where they can find out about you, social media, your website, and any current offers that you have.
Yeah, awesome. I'm really excited to share.
Yeah.
So Spark for Humanity, I'm excited to share with this group. This is probably one of the more public ways that I've shared it. Everyone in my inner circle knows this, but there's a departure that we have Spark for Humanity, and then we now have Spark Leadership. And so Spark for Humanity is the card game and the community experiences around the card game. So in the realm of Spark for Humanity, I'm offering bulk packages for any leaders out there who are doing retreats, community building experiences, any leader who wants to go beyond an icebreaker experience for their team or their community. I still offer community kind of bundles for leaders that could be like a group of card decks for a community retreat or a summit or something like that. Just recently, I had a client who wanted to get 30 decks because she has a group of 300 people, and there's going to be one deck of cards at each table, and that's going to facilitate their community builder for an hour, right? So that's one thing that I'm excited to do, more kind of customized community experiences with the card game. And if anybody's local in the Bay Area, we do a monthly Spark brunch. And so every month we have this month, it's going to be the biggest one yet, where I'm going to host a little leadership workshop right before the brunch. So people who want to explore what does it mean to lead and actually stand up and speak up in a different way, for myself, there's going to be some protective time for people to really tap into their core values and their leadership mission, vision, and philosophy, which is exciting. And so then that gets me to my services, which I'm primarily focused on my Spark leadership services. So I have a course coming up in June, and then I also have one-on-one client offerings. And so the leadership course, I'm really excited about. It's a 6-week package that is all focused on the Spark acronym. So the Spark acronym, each letter stands for a leadership attribute that's imperative. I would say right now, after doing all of my research and studying adult learning theory and critical race theory, and also a lot of the most recent neuroscience development around how managing and leading with the brain in mind is critical right now because of the distress that's on people's plates and team dynamics. And so all of my leadership frameworks and my coaching offerings are grounded in theory and practice. And so there's research-backed approach that's like, so what does it mean to actually think about diagnosing the team that I'm leading at this stage of development, and then thinking differently about my own leadership core values and my own leadership priorities given where my team is at. I haven't seen anything like it before. And I get really excited when I talk about it, because there's nothing more powerful than seeing a leader take responsibility for what matters to them, and then see the trickle effect of how that shift in thinking really impacts the whole community. So I have 3-month and 6-month packages, and then this 6-week community group course, which is going to be fantastic. So for your community, anybody who's listening, I'd be happy to do a complimentary breakthrough call to see if which of these services would be something that might be a good fit. If they're looking for more one-on-one leadership coaching, I'd be happy to jump on the phone with them and talk through what their breakthrough would be, what their current struggle is, whether it's they want to increase their comfort and confidence talking more openly about race and politics, or maybe they want to increase their comfort and confidence in actually navigating tense group dynamics. Or maybe they want to have more comfort with community building activities, just like a lot of facilitation moves in their back pocket that might be helpful. And then finally, having a level of cultural consciousness and a level of self-awareness when you're communicating in front of a group is critical right now, because we're seeing just people on high alert. And so everything that I offer comes from a learner's stance. Like I'm a learner with all of my clients, and I also am excited to share this body of resource and knowledge and expertise that I've culled because of my amazing mentors and my experiences. So that was a mouthful, but yeah. So
no, that's really great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, did you? I don't know. Maybe I didn't catch it. Did you tell people about your website? I mean, everything will be on my website. I'm gonna give you her website information, her social media. You'll get the link to check out her group program that she'll be having. So, which is awesome. So that was great. So thank you so much, Rachel. Is there anything you want to add before we end it? Do you want to leave?
No, I think just
something.
So sorry, what was that last part?
I said, did you want to share a quick message or something with my audience, or just, whatever?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so the last thing, you asked if I shared my website, and you said it'll be below, so that.
Yes, I will be sharing that.
Perfect. Perfect. And for your community, I will offer, if they want to purchase a Spark card deck just for fun to experience the game itself, I'll offer a 10% discount. So all they have to do is enter your first and last name in the discount code, and they'll get a special discount just for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, 10%. You know, I'm all about spreading the love, and especially with good friends like you, it's a real honor to be doing this alongside you. And I would say to your community, you know, if they take away nothing else from this conversation, just remember that it starts with one question: showing courageous curiosity rather than showing certainty in moments of discomfort, or listening with not just your ears, but also your heart, and trying to understand with some empathy. I just can't underestimate how critical that is right now. So if you all take anything else away, remember that fearless listening and courageous curiosity are going to be the thing that move the needle forward for humanity in these times. So let's come together, let's keep building bridges, and continue sparking for humanity.
Yes, and Rachel, you'll definitely need to come back, because as you know, we have a whole lot we can talk about.
I know, never enough time, never enough time.
I know. So thank you so much for joining me today, Rachel, and thank you everyone for watching us. And again, all her information is on my website. It's going to be right there, or you can check it out under. And, you know, Rachel is really, really great. So visionary leaders, those of you who are really looking to, you know, transform your humanity, transform your organization, transform your communities, this is the lady for you. Okay. Thanks again. Love and light.
All right. Thank you. Mwah.